Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, I can tell you're not doing too well today, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How are you doing?
Oh man. Haven't you missed it, mate? That familiar sinking feeling and the inevitable frustration that hits after Villa lose. It's back, and we can finally bask in it on a half an hour podcast where it's not been like this for a little while, has it? It's
No.
been relatively positive on the Villa Filler podcast, but it's good to be back doing what we do best, mate, isn't it?
Isn't it just, man?
Talking about Villa losses.
Obviously, we are here on the back of a 2-1 home defeat to Brighton. Brighton's first ever win at Villa Park, which is absolutely mental. And in fairness, before we get into it, Dan, I'd say there were probably good value for it. Putting my neutral hat on, sitting right in the middle of the pitch and kind of giving my thoughts on that. They were efficient, they were organised, they were well drilled. But the one thing I won't compliment them for is how dirty and aggressive they were, Dan. I really thought they got away with so much. And obviously, Lamptey did end up seeing red a lot later than he probably should have, because he did about 5 of them challenges on Grealish very early on, which he was just clearly cautioned for, and left it late for him to get sent off. It was a very physical approach from Brighton, and I tweeted throughout the game, I think their sole aim was just to hurt Jack Grealish. Now, obviously, he is undoubtedly our most talented and our best player in the squad. You can't hide from that. And obviously, we know Jack Grealish gets fouled. It happens. This kind of stuff, it's going to happen. So it's not like this is our first ever time watching Villa and we can't believe the assault that has been planned on Jack Grealish. He's a man under siege. But I just thought it was disgusting, man. They weren't hiding it. It was none of this kind of tactical foul nonsense you see from your Cities or your Liverpools. They went out to hurt Jack Grealish, Dan.
Yeah, mate, I don't think we can be too surprised by that. I mean, look, I completely understand your outrage, mate, but this is what happens when you get players that retain the ball as well as Jack Grealish do. I don't think there is a harder player in the league to dispossess one-on-one than Jack Grealish, which is why you see so many fouls being cast upon him. But ultimately, this happens, and by no means, don't take this as a comparison point, but you've watched plenty of Lionel Messi in your times, mate. He's like quite literally subject 9 rugby tackles at points, and that's not even an exaggeration. Like, he's tugged down by the waist just because players can't stop him. And I think when you get a player who is so deceitful in one-on-one situations and has that ability to shift their body weight like Jack does, I don't think we as Villa fans can be too surprised that teams are starting to take this approach. And I don't think, whilst it shouldn't happen, agreed, it's not a tactic, but it's something that unfortunately we are going to have to get used to, especially as his profile is raised, and especially as teams are really, and fan bases as well, are really starting to become aware of exactly what he can do on a football pitch, that these kind of approaches are taken to Jack. And I don't think it helps us, and perhaps this will be a nice link to help us look at this game chronologically. I don't think it helps that we lost Rock Barkley.
He's anything but a rock today.
No, exactly. The fact that we lost him so early on means that teams' defensive attention was focused solely on Jack Grealish, as because he becomes that main creative hub for Villa. And look, I think as soon as we lost him, especially with it being so early on, it helps teams to target Jack. And look, I mean, you're right in saying that it shouldn't happen, and that I'm annoyed that it did happen. But unfortunately, mate, I think this is a reality that we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah, and I think what we really saw, Dan, coming from this game was just how much the international break really has taken out some of our players. John McGinn, if I'm being honest, after obviously they qualified for Scotland, he flattered to deceit in the other 2 games that he played in for his nation. Douglas Luiz, obviously, he was, if anything, at the peak of his powers, I felt, during the international break. But obviously, as we kind of alluded to in the last podcast, with such a long flight back, not necessarily having the rest days that are needed, he looks a bit kind of lackadaisical in the middle. And again, that isn't a criticism necessarily of his performance. It's something that's worth noting. It's no shock that this kind of a performance overall has come off the back of an international break. And I know what you said earlier, Dan, on Twitter, which if you guys haven't followed, it's at Wiseman Football for Dan. at Dan Morgy 34 for me. So follow them. I think the ats will be on the screen at some point. I keep forgetting to put that graphic in on a side note for you guys who watch the podcast on YouTube. So there will be a graphic with our Twitter handles. If you don't follow us, please do. But Dan, I saw you tweet during the game that Traore was the wrong sub to make. Now, initially, when you're thinking, right, okay, Ross Barkley is injured, it makes sense to bring on Conor Hourihane with him being a midfielder. And that with the lack of game time for Bertie playing as a 10, I think that, it was a bit of a risk to put him in. Was it a naive one? I'm not quite sure, because he did end up assisting. And his output, again, he's a man who we've just had a debate with on someone on Twitter, that he's lacking match fitness and match sharpness, which is the main thing for me, is the sharpness in his decision making, because there were plenty of opportunities where Bertie was in the final third, and it was, that extra second he held onto the ball, or the fact the incorrect pass he made, that comes with match sharpness, not match fitness. So again, that's something he's going to have to get up to speed with. He's had an injury. He's played for Burkina Faso, although it was poorly documented. But, we've seen that he has been away with his nation. So again, he's another one who's going to struggle. I thought it was overall a good performance, Dan. I can see where you're coming from in that Conor Hourihane probably should have came on and Villa maybe changed to this 4-3-3. But I think the plan all along was to stick to this 4-2-3-1, which, again, we can't lose sight of. We've been crying out for this when we've played 4-3-3. So, making that shift making that shift from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3, I think you just can't win, can you? Because people are going to complain either way. It was a bold decision to make, and it's one that didn't quite pay off. But I think just the nature of the game overall, Dan, with how end-to-end it was, and just how unlucky overall I think Villa was. I think it's, and I know you're not pinning this defeat solely on the substitution of Bertrand Traore. I know that I'm not trying to put them words in your mouth. I just think that, it's a risk. Sometimes you've got to take the risks. And on another day, it pays off. On another, it doesn't. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here, Dan.
Mate, look, I can. You've made some really good points there. I think it's good that you note the difference between match fitness and match sharpness, because I don't think people they're two completely separate entities. And you're completely right in saying I think there is a pressure on Dean to sort of not shoehorn, but get Traore as many minutes as he can, because you're so aware that you have this new signing that you very much signed to replace Trezeguet.
Yeah.
That you've presumably, when you signed him, owed playing time to. When you sign a player, obviously you make a promise as to how much playing time you're going to give them. He would have no doubt have told him in those negotiations that we're particularly weak on the wings. You're going to be a main option. I don't think anyone quite foresaw the progression that Trezeguet has made. And so I don't blame Dean. I mean, look, no one wants to see Traore played than me. I literally sit here with him on the back of my shirt. But I think you need to be, and look, as I said, I don't blame Dean for that, but I think the patience was needed. And I think Traore wasn't necessarily the wrong substitute. I just disagreed with the position that he was put into. I think.
Well, we saw that change, didn't we, Dan, throughout the game, really. It wasn't even like a, right, okay, now you're going to go out wide. It was there was a progression of, okay, Jack's in the middle, now you're out wide. And then he kind of swapped wings with Trez, and then he went back into the middle, and then he ended up back out on the right. It was, if we're being completely honest, quite a difficult situation Bertie probably found himself in.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And this is why, I think we're seeing criticism come Traore's way. And look, I'm not, it wasn't his best game, but considering he just made appearances for Burkina Faso, has to make a flight from Central Africa back into the UK. He's then thrust basically in from the start of this game. Ross Barkley goes off after, I think, a minute and a half. And he basically starts the game when he wasn't assuming to. He's not ready to come into the game, especially not as an attacking mid. But look, I did some research into this. I didn't want to see him unqualified. I didn't want to come on here spout nonsense about how Bertrand Traore is an attacking mid. Go on Twitter and then find out he's made 80 appearances for Lyon as an attacking midfielder in his career. Went online, did some digging. Transfermarkt have said that he's played one game as an attacking mid in his career, which is a 2-2 draw with Stade Brest away for Lyon in 2019. So it's not a seasoned position for him. And look, whilst I don't think we knew this at the time, obviously the game was so young, I think the defence was obviously very shaky. And I think we needed all the bodies that we could in the midfield in front of that back line. And look, Connor's not the best defensive midfielder in the world. I know that, but I really think this was a very transitional game. And look, we didn't know this at the time, so I'm not criticising Dean here. It became a very transitional game, and I think we struggled to get a hold of that game at any point in the 90 minutes. I think whilst we showed so much offensively and we proved that we could be such a threat, you were always conscious in the back of your mind that, like, crap, if Brighton get the ball here, we're in big trouble because of the threats that they posed on the counter, and because I did trust our midfield to get a grip on that game and be able to recycle a second ball and not let Brighton counter us.
Yeah.
And so, look, but the defence were shaky today. I felt like Connor was the logical set at the time. At the time, I was kind of impressed with Dean for doing something a little
Different,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, I liked that. I do like that he tried to try something different, tried to push it. And I think the fact it was Brighton at home helped that. I think if we were playing, no offense to Brighton fans because you beat us today, but a better side or a highly ranked side in the league, he wouldn't have made that switch.
No,
It would
of
have
course
been
not.
Connor.
No, absolutely.
But no, I think, look, I don't want to give. The midfield weren't great, but it was an off day for the defence. And my opinion was that another body in midfield might help to have masked those issues. But to be honest with you, mate, we were a wash at the back today, and I'm not really sure it would overall, to be honest with you.
We were, and I mean, going on to the first Brighton goal, of course it had to be Danny Welbeck. I can't believe, Dan, that we're in 2020 and Danny Welbeck is still getting the better of Villa defences. It's bizarre, but the defending for that set piece was just totally all over the shop. You've got Mings not deciding whether he can whether he should come or go for that initial flick on from Welbeck. All the Villa players, the back four at least, were in a line essentially for that throw in. So there's no defensive cover there. We're all in the attacking half. And it's no surprise that Welbeck was able to peel off, score against his former Arsenal teammate, Emi Martinez. A very wonderful finish. We've got to put our hands up there. He takes that really well. But the defending was shocking, as you alluded to there, Dan. And as the weeks go on, I'm sat here and I'm realising, Dan, that Ezri Konsa is twice the player that Tyrone Mings is defensively. And he, obviously Konsa scored the goal today. He looks so much more assured, doesn't waste time on the ball. He doesn't mess about. It gets rid of the ball. None of this kind of nonchalant, let me take 10 touches and just stroll out with the ball. Like it just,
with the chest.
Chest.
Puff your chest out as you do it.
It's like, you don't need to do that, Ty. You're 6'6", man. But it's like, you just don't, sometimes you just got to put your foot through it. And listen, I don't know whether it's a coaching thing or whatever. I mean, surely it can't be because we don't see that kind of flamboyance from Ezri at the back. But man, I mean, obviously Konsa got the goal again today. It was another really impressive goal from him. I think the less said about that defence, the better. So we will move on to that. What a ball in from Bertrand as well, Dan. Because again, as we kind of alluded to there has been some criticism of Bertrand, but pretty much, I would probably say about 85% of his deliveries with his left foot were exceptional today.
Well, look, mate, it's right that you say that. I think Ezri, how good as an out-and-out defender they are, I think is perhaps a little bit still up for contest. But I'm touching on your point. I think Ezri is certainly far more consistent than Tyrone. I think Tyrone has potential to be the superior defender. I think he's a bit more fleet-footed. I think he's quicker. And despite how wasteful he is, I still inherently believe he's better on the ball than Tyrone as like a passer, as a dribbler. Although I think Ezri sticks up for himself really well in that regard, actually. So perhaps I'm being, a bit hypercritical there. But what Ezri is he gives you 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 every single game,
and goals.
Absolutely. Which is definitely one criticism of Tyrone, in that, considering, as you pointed out, he's 6'6" and he comes up, puffs his chest out, struts forward for every single corner, every single free kick. I know he's bagged against Fulham and stuff this season, but he's never as much of a goal threat as Ezri. Ezri is really getting a knack now for scoring goals.
His positional play is superior, I think, both in an attacking and defensive sense. You can count on Ezri to be in the right place in the right time, as you say, 8 or 9 times out of 10. Obviously, one of them times that he wasn't was for that Brighton goal that was conceded, but the whole defence was a mess there, Dan. But no, I think, well put. I think he's just a bit more complete, and I think that's what it comes down to. And again, this isn't us saying, "Oh, Ty's crap, Ty's this, Ty's that." We can't be blind to the holes that are in our players and in our team's game, and we have to kind of point them out. Ty could comfortably be getting like 5 or 6 goals a season from set plays with his height, you would think. So hopefully that's something that can be coached in. But as we say, Dan, wonderful ball in from Traore, beautifully took by Conte. Again, his positional play in these kind of dead ball situations is so good. And if it's not Conte that it's getting to, it's Trez at the back stick, which is again one of the most inevitable things in life. But unfortunately, Villa looked to try and get into the game through this set piece. We looked a bit better in that second half, as we alluded to earlier. There was that switch where Trezeguet came out to the left, and it nullified that threat of Lamptey that much more than Grealish did. I think we've got to say, I don't think this was a good performance from Jack Grealish. I have to be honest. Again, I'm going to put that down to the international break. He was tired. Again, he finds himself a bit more centrally as well. And I don't want to say that he doesn't know what his positional responsibilities are, but it's been a while since he's had to play as a central midfielder or as a 10. And I think we all know he can do it there. There's no question about that. I just think it's one of them days. Luck wasn't going our way, Dan. It really wasn't.
No, mate. And look, I think, Jack, I'm not going to hand out much criticism to any Villa player today, mate. I have to say, I think there is so much down to it that was the international break and was the sheer volume of games that these players are playing at the moment. And look, even Tyrone, it wasn't his best game today. And whilst I think we're starting to see a trend in Tyrone's games where, as I said, he does have these games where sort of 1 in every 7-8 games, he's just off it. It's no surprise that it comes so soon after the international break. And I don't, I think we saw two sides today. I think Villa tired massively. I actually thought, despite Brighton's, scoring quite early on, I thought we made a really good start. Traore had another good delivery from a free kick, which Trezeguet volleyed, which was blocked. Matty Cash looked really bright down the right-hand side. He made some good runs and was threatening. And we just got too sucked into that, I think, for their first goal. But look, I don't want to get too right into that. But you're right, the international break had such an effect on this Villa team today. But I still don't think that necessarily you can't help but feel disappointed. And I think frustrated is the main word there. I think for the second goal, and this is where, again, I think perhaps another not necessarily a holding midfielder, but perhaps just another central midfielder tracks March in that situation. And I think perhaps again, I'm not saying Conor Hourihane is the answer to all of our defensive problems. Please don't hate me.
He's the answer to none of them.
Yeah, exactly. But, just, again, another body in that perhaps, because the defence, when that ball comes in, I think it's Pascal Gross that slides it in. The centre-backs are too deep. They're basically on the edge of the 6-yard box, and they need to be more up towards the penalty spot, which allows the space for someone like Solly March to drip in. And look, hey, brilliant goal.
And again, as well.
Yeah, a great goal. And again, this is where I don't want to get sucked into being too hypercritical, because this sort of feels like the Southampton game, whereby if you want to play the game of XG, which I don't want to come on this podcast and do, because that's not how football works. It's about goals, not expected goals. But it's just another good finish that ultimately, you can nitpick and say, the centre-backs need to be a bit higher. Maybe another midfielder tracks him. It's a game of if, buts and maybes for that goal, but it's just another brilliant finish against the Villa, like the Southampton game, whereby you feel like if on another day Solly March puts that into the north, we get a point. We come out of this game, with something positive to take. So in some situations, you can be hypercritical, but sometimes you have to hold your hands up and say, you know what, brilliant finish. Emi has absolutely no chance with that Solly March goal.
Of course.
He's been really good. He had a bar the penalty incident at the end. Pascal Gross as well. Since their promotion in 2017, no player's been involved with more goals for Brighton than Pascal Gross. He continues to go under the radar, and it's a nice pick out from him. Holes in the Villa defence, but ultimately that goal, very different from the first, in that sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say, nice finish.
Now, Dan, I know it's a common phrase that you chuck about on this podcast about not getting too sucked into refereeing decisions. It's hard not to tonight, though, isn't it, Dan? I mean, It's Michael Oliver has given the penalty initially. He's then gone over and checked the monitor, and as we can all see, Solly March takes out Trezeguet and gets a deflection of the ball onto his leg. Now, there is no way you can say he's won the ball, because winning the ball, you have control of the ball. If he won the ball, then he would have, first of all, I think we'd have seen the ball on the floor with just because of the trajectory and how the jack went in. It was a bit of a mismatch. There's no situation where Solly March ever controls the ball in that situation, which, surely by letter of the law means it's a penalty. Now, as you say, referee checked the monitor, went against it. So, Villa, it seemed like it was too little too late as well, because obviously Lamptey did get sent off minutes before. Villa were piling on the pressure. It was corner after corner. Balls were going into the box. It was desperate at times, Dan. It really was, to be frank about it. And I know, as you say, you don't like to get sucked into these referee decisions, Dan, but when the luck isn't going your way, and look, you said, don't want to get too sucked into XG, but when Villa have had 15 shots, 7 of which on target, and Brighton have had 7 and about 3 on target, and we're denied of a penalty like this, it is so frustrating. And it was clear to see that this afternoon, the rub of the green clearly wasn't with Villa, and it's just a shocking decision. And I think everyone's in agreement with that. You just have to scroll through Twitter, even listening to the BT Sport pundits and commentators. There's no way that is not a penalty.
I think, look, no, you're absolutely right, and let me get something clear. Trez makes a lot of it. He goes down, but this is where the age-old debate, whereby if Trezeguet tries to carry on in that situation, I know the penalty wasn't given in the end, but Michael Oliver doesn't blow. He doesn't give Villa the chance. And look,
it's a catch-22, man.
It is for sure. Trez goes down and makes of it, but he has to do that in order to get the decision, which he didn't inevitably get. I think it's one of those where, it's far from being a stonewall penalty, but you're right in saying I think Michael Oliver, he puts Michael Oliver in the spot to make a decision, and my opinion is that it's a little bit clumsy. And in this day and age, you see penalties being given for things that are far more controversial than that. Let me rewind you back to June last year and Bruno Fernandes against Cedric Konsa. I've seen penalties given for some crazy things. And if Trezeguet could have stayed on his feet there, he doesn't have to go down. Yeah, but Villa are never going to get it. Exactly. And look, it's probably a light penalty, but once you put the referee in that position to make, and given how penalties work in 2020, you're right, mate, it is a penalty. And Michael Oliver then goes over to the screen, which I think is an entirely pointless process anyway, because from what I've seen, mate, and I watch a fair bit of football, every time the referee is recommended to go and take a look at the screen, he gives the decision that has been recommended to him clearly because I think automatically it casts doubt in your mind. Once you're a referee and you've given a decision and you're told in your ear, wait a second, you might want to go and have a second look at this already. And this is how human psychology works. You're thinking, crap, I've made a mistake. Because you haven't had an independent panel look at your decision and go, yeah, bang on, penalty. You've had someone go, you might want to have a second look at that. You're then inclined to go with what you're being told. And I don't like to come on this podcast too much and hamper refereeing decisions, mate. I think Villa, to be honest with you, probably would have been good value for a point. I think a point is fair. I don't think we deserve to win the game. 100%. I think Brighton, in terms of how they operated a game plan, did far better than Villa. I think we could have taken a point. That penalty would have been nice. It would have been also nice because Ollie Watkins is in my fantasy team and I'm doing terrible in the league and I'm desperate for the goals. But no, on the whole, mate, just again, use that word. And it's what I used at halftime. It's what I use at full time on the account. Frustrating.
And I think that's the perfect word to kind of end the talk about Brighton there. Obviously, next up, we do have West Ham, who play against Sheffield United tomorrow away from home at Bramall Lane. West Ham have been very decent this season, Dan. Obviously, I think we should briefly talk about it. It's possibly a bit too early to do a full preview, so maybe you'll see us again sometime next week to kind of go down that route. But West Ham, they've found their feet with this 3-4-3. Aaron Cresswell was playing as a left centre back, and he's like the second coming of Maldini. There's a lot of things going right for West Ham, and this is going to be a really difficult game for Villa to kind of come into off the back of a defeat in the manner of which it was. Though I'm kind of getting hints of, like, second half against Southampton, going to hopefully carry that over again, like we did in the performance against Arsenal, and hopefully just have that clinical edge that we ultimately just lacked today, Dan.
Yeah, look, I mean, hey, when we started the season, West Ham had a pre-season friendly against Bournemouth, and they conceded 5 goals at home in that friendly.
Yeah.
And then they came into the first game of the season. It was Newcastle at home. They then lost 2-0. They then went to the Emirates and lost there. And I was like, man, West Ham are in trouble. Like, I was looking at those and thinking, these boys are going to go down. They're in trouble. And then out of nowhere, in their next league game, they beat Wolves 4-0. They then go and beat Leicester 3-0. They then go and get a draw in crazy, crazy circumstances at Spurs. You remember that comeback from 3-0 down. Lanzini scored the worldie.
Yeah.
They then go and get a draw against West Ham. They then go and lose 2-1 to Liverpool, which is not a bad result at all. And then what's interesting is that in their last game, they had Fulham at home, which you would have thought, considering their form, would have been nailed on. But they got away with that because Ademola Lookman tried that Panenka that never actually left the ground and sort of dribbled into Lucas Fabianski's hands. And so, like us, they're a team that's really hard to call at the moment. And I don't actually know how good of a side Villa are this season yet. It's really hard to tell, isn't it? Because one week you think we're world beaters and we're really good value for our position in the top 6, or as we were before kickoff. And then you watch other games and you're like, man, the problems that were there last season are still there, like today. So it's going to be a really interesting one. It's a difficult one to call, mate. And yeah, it would be nice to come back and preview this one, try and learn a bit more about each side and try and come back with a bit more of an educated opinion. But just looking at results, which, as I said, ultimately are the things that decide this league, it's really hard to call, mate. Two sides that you never really know where they stand. And we go there with good memories of playing at the Olympic Stadium, and hopefully that helps us, because the last time we went there, it was not a bad day for the Aston Villa Football Club.
Absolutely, mate. You're going to hope that you can kind of carry that form forward. And we do actually still sit in 6th as we stand. Obviously, games are still being played. With how the COVID Premier League works, there's not a whole bunch of 3 o'clock kickoffs and whatnot. So, if you're lucky and if you can get your wins, you can enjoy sitting at the top of the table for that bit longer. There are still games to play. We still have a game in hand, and West Ham important. Sit in 12th. Obviously, that game in hand is against Manchester City, and it looks like that game will never be played. So maybe we can get lucky and get some points out of that. I don't know. Obviously, I think that'll be rescheduled probably like in the mid half of the second half of the season. Just with European fixtures and whatnot, I think as soon as City crash out of the Champions League, that game will probably be played. But Dan, as ever, it's been amazing talking to you. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get the points today. Hopefully, we can rectify that against West Ham. And I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's listening, watching. If you are watching on YouTube, there is a lot of you who watch these podcasts who aren't subscribed. So please do subscribe and make sure you hit the notification button and put the bell. It's the bell item. And then if you press that, get notified every single time we upload, so as you don't miss a podcast or a video coming from us at Heart of the Holte. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, please leave a review if you enjoy. And also, because you can't really comment on there, if you come over onto the YouTube video and just let us know that you listen on Spotify, that would be really good as well. And like the video if you are on YouTube, comment, subscribe, do all that business, and have a good weekend, villains. Up Villa.
It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. He's the main leader of the gang now. Chester.